Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by Dean Burr. If you've been following my podcast, you know I've been on a Dean mini-series. I've been asking the experiences of the various deans of colleges around George Mason University, and this has been a really insightful learning experience. And now I have the dean of the honors college, so the smarty arties. And so Dean Burr, can you give the listeners a little bit of background on who you are and maybe your journey to Mason?
My journey to Mason. All right. Well, I've been at Mason since the fall of 1992. So I've been here for quite a while. I started as a member of the English department. And then in 2006, I was asked to take over and direct what was then a very small honors program in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. And that's where the honors journey began. Did you want me to go back before that?
And so, I think that you said you taught in English. Was your background, like you're an English major? And, I love that journey because I think from my recollection, I believe Dean Artis is an English major as well. So I don't know. I'm seeing some themes about the written word, but yeah.
No, it's very interesting. Yeah, I did. To go back a little ways, I went to a small state college in California, Sonoma State, and I studied many things there. I was one of those students who moved all around. Ended up with an English major. Had always had an idea that I wanted to write, but I was still thinking about a lot of different things. I was actually working in special education at the time.
Okay.
And then I worked in special education for several years, and then I made a big jump when I went off to Cornell to join the Master in Fine Arts program there to write poetry.
Okay, wow. Okay, that is a jump.
It was a big jump. It was a big change in the culture of higher education, a big change in region. And I think that actually making that jump was very informative to me because I realized things like, what counts as literature in California, this is the late 70s, early 80s. It's like that's different than what counts in Ithaca, New York, at Cornell.
Yeah.
And, and what I'd studied and what I'd read, was very different from what the other people in the graduate programs in writing and in literature had focused on in their preparation for graduate study.
So when you said focused or counts, you mean just more so like what literature they were exposed to?
Yeah, what literature they were exposed to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so very different, canons, as they say.
Was it like, and maybe this is stereotypical, but was it like, those very liberal, free-flowing flower child people in Cali, and you go to the East Coast and it's a little like, I guess, harder? Is it kind of like that culture?
And it was like very serious, like English literature. Yeah. I'd read a lot of literature and translation. I'd read a lot of, I was in a context where the work of writing and the work of activism were linked. I went to a place where it's like, this is an aesthetic activity. This is not linked to activism. So all of these very, very different values coming down on what counted as, good writing.
Yeah, I see that aesthetics and advocacy because, I draw a lot of parallels. Like my father-in-law, my late father-in-law, who I dedicate a lot of this show to, he was an English major at UVA, and now I'm thinking about the way that he viewed writing. He viewed it as a tool for, as you said, activism. He was very involved in nonprofits and stuff. And I remember now, like, being around him more, he wrote things in a very persuasive way for stating the case, right? Like everyone's like, oh, you should have gone to law school. He's like, I didn't like it. But then on the flip side, he was very creative and he loved music and he loved literature. And so I feel like you need that, right? You need that skill base of appreciating the tool of writing for appreciating the tool of writing to like be persuasive and do things, but also at the same time the appreciation of the art and aesthetics and style. Do you feel like having your experiences on the West Coast and East Coast, that kind of frame like what kind of writer you are? How do you view literature yourself? This is a full tangent, but I really liked where that started.
Well, I think what's really interesting about literature is how it hits different people. So, I mean, I think the main thing that big transition affected is my sense of audience. And you really can't take anything for granted about how somebody is going to hear you, right? And also how it makes a difference, you know, who seems to be saying what, you know, and how the same words are perceived differently depending on who you think is talking. And so, you know, my interest in literature is kind of in everything, you know, and in the classroom in particular, you know, in my early career, my real focus was on, you know, bringing a piece of literature to the class, a poem, something, and then taking that opportunity for everyone in the room to learn from each other about how they responded to that piece of literature. And then the work of literary analysis was to be able to unpack for yourself and for people listening who didn't share your perspective how you came to see it that way. What's the language that you're bouncing off of? What associations are you making? What preconceptions are you bringing about the speaker? So I have used literature in my career primarily as a tool for communication about differences.
The conversation, dialogue,
Yeah.
dialogue building. So I see this big shift, and obviously you stayed here or you're here on the East Coast. What was some of the transition of going from Cornell into academia?
Well, I mean, at Cornell, I did have the opportunity to teach, so I had a sense, you know, I had a really good opportunity to get prepared to be in the classroom, and in particular to be in a general education classroom, right? That's what a graduate student would teach. And here, you know, it began to prepare me for students bringing really different perspectives to the table, but there was nothing out there, you know, in my previous experience, like the experience of being in a Mason classroom, in the general education classroom where you had, you know, you may be teaching an introduction to literature and you had students, you know, you had 25 students in the room and 16 different home languages being spoken, and the richness of what they could teach each other about the worlds that they didn't know, you know, was so amazing to me. And so I have, you know, I really focused my teaching always on that, on how we, you know, both learn from the text, right? And again, and one of the things I was working against early on in my career was that tendency that people had to teach others to read by identification, right? Okay. So like find what you can identify with. But that's really very limiting, right? Because if literature brings you the opportunity to learn about perspectives you don't share, you're going to be missing that. I like to break that down because that's really interesting. So let's say I have a poem from Edgar Allan Poe, and I'm reading it, and when you're saying look at it from not as a perspective as a black man, but try to read Edgar Allan Poe, like what was going on in that time, and try to have context to the perspective of Edgar Allan Poe
rather than reading it from the lens of my identity?
No, I would say both. I would say it's the conversation is what's important. Your difference, your difference from the perspective the writer is bringing is very, very important. But also taking the opportunity, if you can, where you can, to step back and see that other perspective.
Gotcha.
You know, a good example for me is I always have taught Gwendolyn Brooks.
Okay.
Right? And she's a writer who said, I write to Black people, I write for everyone.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's a really good opportunity for the students who don't identify as Black to think about, okay, I have something different to learn here.
She's like, I write from that perspective, I write for this. But if you're not of this identity, you can use my work as a perspective-taking tool to someone else that's different.
Right. So I would always talk about we can learn a lot from conversations that we're not included in. Right. And particularly from a perspective of privilege.
Yeah.
That's an important, thing to do, with some self-reflection.
Right.
Right. And you bring all of what you have to bring, and there's no taking that away.
Yeah.
But really using literature to learn from it, as much about yourself and other people. I mean, that's one of these, fantastic opportunities that we have in education.
And I love that. We do have that tool in education. And I think that's why I love learning and love documentaries. Like, you can watch and, like, absorb. And it's almost, I usually say something, too, like, when people, like, not the burden of, but when we talk about DEI and all that, like, the tools are out there for you to learn about different identities, that you don't always have to put it on that person of that identity to teach you, if that makes sense. Like, oh, I want to be an advocate for, a different group than me, the LGBTQ community. Well, I don't have to keep on asking someone that identifies to teach me. I could just watch or read literature and really not teach myself, but really take that perspective taking from literature. And it's, I would say safely, because then you can't really be embarrassed, right? You can ask questions. Like, there's no dumb question because you're by yourself reading.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right. Right. I mean, absolutely. I think that's wonderful advice. But I think conversation is also really crucial, and having those opportunities for structured conversations, right? Conversations where you really do. We'd be looking at a poem and you'd say something about what you'd see, and I would have the opportunity to say, Phil, I really
disagree.
I can't. No, not necessarily. Like, that's not even the point. The point is, I can't see it that way. Can you tell me more about how you came to see it that way?
Yeah.
I can learn so much from that. And likewise, for you, you could say to me, how did you get there? And I'll okay, let me think what I did here. And again, that's evidence, right? That's looking at your own thinking processes, and being rigorous. It's hard at first, right? When you have a reaction to something, to know how to say, oh, maybe that came out of that. But first, again, to really engage with somebody else, shooting perspectives back and forth doesn't get you very far unless you develop some compassion and understanding for that other perspective. And that's work.
Yeah, it is work.
Right?
And discomfort, but also, like you said, I think that takes structure. So, I know we're jumping around, but I really like, I guess I'm going to maybe title this Literature as a Tool for Dialogue or something like that.
Yeah.
But what brought you? Yeah, what came to Mason? I mean, you said you've been here for a while. I've heard from a lot of other deans that it was very attractive to come to a younger institution where, like, it was new and growing, and that was exciting. So please tell what's a little bit about what brought you here, and was that same excitement for something new and lots of
Yeah, I mean, I think it struck me right away as a place where I could make a difference, where I could do something differently. I wasn't really teaching introductions to literature at that time the way other people were, but I got a sense right away that actually this particular department wanted me to do what I was doing. I mean, they actually, it was at the time they were looking for somebody to teach poetry and to do cultural studies.
Mm-hmm.
And and they knew my background and knew my work, and they seemed to want me to be here, and it has certainly proved itself to be an institution where an individual can make a difference.
Yeah, it was younger. When did you come?
I came straight out of graduate school in 1992.
So I mean, I can't even remember. Like, what did the school even look like in '92? I mean, it's like 3 buildings. I grew up in this. Military brat, but we planted roots in the early '90s and moved around. But from my understanding, even just in the early 2000s, this place has transformed.
Absolutely,
crazy.
absolutely. I mean, there was no Johnson Center. That was a grove of trees.
Okay.
That's what I really remember. And my office for many years was in the old Robinson Hall.
Okay. Yeah. A and
B in Robinson
yeah.
on the 4th floor.
Okay.
So those places don't exist anymore.
And so English, you came here. The student body was different. When did you start? I'm learning. Maybe becoming the academic, not the academic, but the administrative side. The chairs of a department. When did that start happening?
That really started in 2006,
Okay.
and when I was asked to direct a very small honors program that was in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. I had been part of creating the honors curriculum in '97 when we looked at. Do you remember the program for alternative general education, the PAGE program? That was before your time.
Yeah, well, I heard of it, but yeah.
Right. So in '97, a small group of us were tasked with sort of, let's turn this into honors somehow.
Okay.
So we created the first semester research experience. I did some teaching in that for a few years going forward, and then I was really away from honors as I was a junior faculty, coming up through English, needed to get my book done and all of those kinds of things. Yeah. And then it was when I came back in 2006 to the program, what actually really took me aback was that, first of all, the curriculum hadn't changed, and the students had changed a lot.
Yeah.
And the honors program did not represent Mason. So
what do you mean, like represent, like the?
So the honors program was a bunch of out-of-state kids who did not represent the diversity of the university.
Of the DMV, yeah.
Yeah, and so I had that pleasure. In the general education classroom in particular, not as much in the English major, of having a really diverse group of students in conversation, and saw the incredible value of that to the students' learning. And when I came into honors was not representative. I mean, they were using some out-of-date, metrics for bringing in honors students.
So this is like the macro level. Why do universities have the distinction between normal classes and honors classes? And talk to me as if I'm a parent, don't I always want my kids to be in the honors and is that something like your parents should always kind of not force your kids, but always make sure you at least apply to the honors college of your university that you're going to? Kind of thing?
Yeah. In general, absolutely, right? Because there are some opportunities that are associated with honors that you want your kids to have, right? Mason's honors is different than any other honors college.
Okay.
Honors colleges, honors programs in general, they're created to bring in students who might not otherwise think about the university.
Okay.
Right. So they're very admissions focused.
Okay.
But that was part of the problem with the program that I inherited, was that it wasn't reaching out. It didn't have not everybody could apply to the honors. Admissions was just reaching out and saying, let's see what happens if we offer you honors. And so we had to really take that apart to make this Mason's Honors College.
Okay.
But the values of honors, the opportunity, at this very large university to be part of a smaller community, that has a lot of positive value, and a small multidisciplinary community. I mean, at Mason, I would say, because I've had the opportunity, and you keep going back to that question about how I became an administrator.
Yeah.
In 2006, I brought on a mathematician to partner with me, somebody purposefully, somebody with a very different perspective on what general education should be. Somebody,
Different discipline.
Kathleen Allagood, she was, she just had a really different idea about this. And I was like, yes, you're going to partner with me, and we're going to work it out, and we're going to connect with all the different units and all the different programs, and we're going to figure out what Mason honors should be.
Yes.
Right? And so we're going to figure out what are the resources we want to be sure that our students get connected to. We don't want to be redundant, right? We don't want to create anything that somebody else is already doing. What we want to do is connect our students to the opportunities, and we want to bring in faculty from across the university, and we want to be open to every student studying every possible thing, doing every possible activity, athletics, dance, all of the, all of the things that are can often be sort of excluded from these opportunities. Again, because we want our students to be in classrooms with the full diversity of the university and have that opportunity to learn from everyone.
So my understanding too is like, I guess me put on when I was like a honors kid in high school. I did IB, International Baccalaureate, right? And the only thing I thought of in that time, now that I know, was different curriculum. It was the International Baccalaureate curriculum, but it was very college preparatory, right? Like we had to do extra work. We had to do essays that taught us about thesis and all that stuff. Is that the same rigor of this honors college, that it has a little bit of like extra requirements that prepare students for something beyond, I guess,
I would
not say typical student, but you know what I meant? Like, it's like a notch up. It's harder. It's more rigorous. Or
yeah, I mean, the harder and more rigorous, honestly, that's not the point.
Okay, yeah, thank you, see, yeah.
The point for me is inclusion.
Okay.
Okay, and the work of inclusion, which is not easy.
Yeah.
Right? So, what our students get, I mean, our students in the Honors College, they have an alternative, a different general education, right? So they do not do the Mason core.
Got it, okay.
Okay, they do the honors curriculum. And the first class they take in the honors curriculum, the focus in that class is on learning to ask a question, learning to focus a research question.
I see, yeah.
Right? And a question that is complex and analytical, one that has to be considered from multiple perspectives.
Teaching them, this is getting them ready for research and all that,
regardless
of discipline.
Of discipline.
So if I'm a government student, ask me a question about society or something, it's beyond just policy. I got to look at society and literature, all kinds of things outside my discipline.
Well, and the harder part is you got to figure out what your question is.
Yeah, it's hard
right?
to. Yeah.
Okay, because when students get here, they've been answering other people's questions their whole lives.
Yeah.
So this is when we say, what is it you really care about? What do you want to try to figure out? And then we try to help students develop those skills and those processes, right? And in that first semester, what the students do is they learn to focus the question.
Yeah.
And they do some preliminary, a literature review, get some of the basics, and they write a proposal.
Yeah.
The proposal is like, if I had the expertise, the time, the
funds,
resources, the team, this is how I would pursue this question, right? So we'd really try to back them up from, answers and arguing, right? And in that classroom, that's the first place where we're really focused on, those values that I talked to you about in the literature classroom. In a multidisciplinary research classroom, you really have an opportunity to learn from each other about, what matters, why it matters, all of that. So the honors curriculum has that. And from my point of view, this is the kind of first semester that I would love to offer every Mason undergraduate, right? Because what it does is it prepares our students to take advantage of those opportunities that Mason provides for undergraduate research in particular, right? But the thing about it is it's very hard to teach because, faculty, we like to have expertise. You get a room full of students, they have questions you don't have expertise in. You can guide them through the process.
So scale. It's a real deal. We're open. We're a university to access, and by being so, we are the largest, most diverse institution in the state of Virginia. So to teach this class, it's to scale. It's really hard. Everyone, I agree with you. Everyone could benefit from it. We got 40,000 students.
Yeah, and the challenge is that, it is a different thing to teach students a subject and to teach them to sort of argue about it.
Yes.
Right? But to tell them, first of all, the real questions you're going to be dealing with are not going to be answerable like, thesis, evidence, proof, whatever. You're going to be working with other people who don't see things the way you do. You're going to have to open up and synthesize and ask questions and step back and be uncertain. Yeah. And again, we're trying to prepare them for everything.
Just for thinking in general and learning. The lifelong process, right? This is not just something you're going to do. You go out to the real world professionally and you're going to try to answer problems and do these things that probably don't have answers in your lifetime. But it's the pursuit of getting better or learning.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of synergy, like you said, research. So Oscar and other offices, are those integral connections to the Honors College?
Absolutely. And we have partnerships. I would say another big piece of the honors culture that is, again, it's Mason culture, right? Everything that we're doing is very organic to Mason.
Yeah.
Is the student leadership piece.
Yes.
Right? So after students come through that first experience in Honors 110, they have the opportunity to become peer mentors for that experience. Right? And they have, and they get to sort of, to own it, right? But the other place, and I want to talk about this later, our strongest partner at the university, our most important partner is the early identification program.
Yeah, please go into that. Well, I know a lot of people at ERP. Shout out to Kasim and
to Mia.
And
the whole team.
And my old, my mentor who was an old, Lewis Forrest, that's big. That was a big part of his life too. But how did that synergy and partnership come about?
Yeah, well, and around 2015, I really realized we weren't, there were these amazing students, these 8th through 12th graders that Mason was preparing for college, and we weren't drawing very many of them. And in particular, we weren't drawing the most motivated, right? Yeah. So I began then, I called Kasim and said, come and talk to me. He has a great story about how he felt about being called to the dean's office at that moment. But since then, we have worked, we started with what we now call a sort of a college success partnership, where we have honors college students who are engaged in the civic engagement part of our curriculum, which is another one of the special opportunities. They are working with early identification students on their college essays.
Oh, like a mentor slash tutor
yeah,
per se.
Yeah, and this year, and we always teach that class in partnership with admissions and EIP. So this year we had Rachel Cleaver from admissions teaching with Amy Weinstein, and and working closely with Mia. So we try to make those connections.
It's just visibility and all that. And so if I'm just thinking about it in my head, if I am I'm from the DMV too, so I'm from Mount Vernon. I'm in the EIP program as the ninth grader through the 12th. And I see someone like me that's tutoring me. And I say, oh, where do you go to college? You gotta go to George Mason. It's almost like I got this familiarity. It's just exposure.
Yeah, well, and also,
connections.
Kasim and I had to work together, and continue to work together really closely to make sure, every EIP student applies to the Honors College, right? Because there were a lot. Every student who applies to Mason first year or transfer is asked that question: do you want to apply to the Honors College?
Oh, just at least click it.
And we just found that like many first generation students were not saying yes.
That is a phenomenon. Do you think that it's almost like you don't miss any shots you don't take? You think that people are automatically opting out because of systemic insecurity? Like, oh, that's honors. That's not for me. That's
right.
For the
right.
And so, yeah, wow, that's
so we began working on that with that program, and then several years ago we added another piece, which is as part of the summer academy. Yeah. As we speak, Dr. Nadine McCloof is supporting. Has shaped a program where we have an honors seminar for the rising seniors.
Yeah.
And so we have 7 honors instructors and a whole team of honors mentors, several of whom were EIP alumni.
Yeah.
Right? So we have really worked hard to build that connection. So again, that's a piece of the curriculum, right?
Yeah.
Our honors college students engage, have a civic engagement requirement, and one of the opportunities they have is in our partnership with the early identification program
to give back.
Yeah.
And you see this. It's not. I hate the word pipeline because it sounds so businessy.
Yeah.
But you see this channel or reoccurring door of opportunity.
Right. Right.
Rather than pipeline, because you see I see it, I can achieve it. I see, EIP alum giving back and is in the honors college. Well, guess what? I'm in EIP. I could be like that person too one day, right? Like I can see what I can be through someone else, and that's really powerful.
Yeah, and in our, we have a very small university scholars program, and that's for 20 students a year, provides full scholarships. Usually 4 or 5 of those are EIP alumni.
Look at that. It's see, believe.
Yeah. So, it's part of it is making, we've worked across the board to make this Mason's Honors College, right?
Yeah.
Fully accessible to, all of the students who seek out Mason, including those who wouldn't have considered it. So, in addition to that first year entry, we have students entering the Honors College after their first semester and first year. Right, we look for them, students who are doing really well, who look like they might be able to make use of that extra support, particularly in the research space. And that's relatively new in honors because it's a smaller component, but it's powerful, really powerful.
And this might be anecdotal. I'm using only one student as my example, Zaid. This guy's all over the place. So I know him very well. Takes advantage of every career services thing. So shout out to him. But is there a high correlation between students like that and they're getting involved in SGA and student leadership on campus? Do you see that intersection between honors college and just being involved?
Yeah, our honors college students are happily overrepresented in the RSOs and in the leadership of the RSOs. That's what you have an honors college for, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you and again, what we always talk about with our students is we're looking for the most motivated students, right? So we're looking for the students who can take best advantage of these opportunities. Not that we wouldn't like to give these opportunities to every Mason undergraduate, right? And most of these opportunities exist. The Oscar opportunities.
Yes.
It's rich, what you all offer through career services.
Yeah.
There are a lot of resources, but honors helps students navigate that a little bit.
Yeah. One of my things too is it like not retention, but is there a high correlation between someone that does honors and keeps on going? Like
Yes.
gets a graduate degree or further?
Yeah. A pretty high percentage of our students go on to do graduate school, not necessarily right away.
Okay.
But a lot of them do those 3+2 programs. A lot of them do the accelerated master's programs. So yes, slightly higher. High percentage stay, comparable to Mason as a whole, stay in the area.
I was about to ask that too, like a lot in the DMV.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to make a strong assumption there's a very robust honors college alumni presence in the DMV working, and just you're seeing, like, now a couple iterations out, you're seeing where they are in the area.
Yeah, and we have very good alumni leadership on our advisory board. For instance, so when we created the Honors College, we created, when we started developing our alumni work, we reached back to the programs that were kind of the predecessors. So there was the Page program, the Honors program in general education, and there was also the University Scholars program, which was quite separate from these units. So that's also something that we did in 2009, was we bring the scholars together with them. So we have university scholars from the 90s, right, from before there was any kind of honors, who are Honors College alumni, and they are very, some of them are very, very active in our alumni network.
Now, this is also a very higher ed structural question, right? So you were underneath CHES, or College of Humanities and Social Science. Why does other universities have their honor college be like a separate college with a dean and all that? Is that a normal thing, or is there a reason to that? Why people do that?
Yeah, so we're not. We're now totally separate, and we're just under the provost's office, right? Because we serve the whole university.
Yes,
and so when we went from becoming a program in 2006 to becoming a college, and we're an administrative unit in 2009, we basically looked around to see what are the best ways that people have done this honors college thing. And we saw that, the best thing, you have a dean that reports directly to the provost and is part of the dean's group, because you want to. Again, these, our students are in every program, so we need to be as connected to every program as possible.
Gotcha.
So, now we're basically, we're central in many ways.
So let's say if I'm a film student, but I'm an honors film student, I will. My experience as a student would have a connection to you as my honors dean and to Rick Davis. Gotcha. So the student experience is kind of like in two worlds. Gotcha.
Right. And students, their affinity, oftentimes, in the Costello College of Business, the students are ambassadors there, are also ambassadors here, and ambassadors for the university. So we have
plugged in.
Yeah, so they have, we want our students to be as broadly connected and affiliated as possible, and we do everything in partnership.
Yeah, see, I'm saying, Oscar, EIP, you got to be plugged in.
Every department and every college, you got to be really in an active exchange.
Do you, I see a lot of, this is not the higher, but the career aspect. A lot of, do you see any, two things, do you see any resistance career-wise from parents? not like the same, I guess, like when I was a history major, luckily my dad was one, but I could see people be like, what you going to do with that degree? You don't get it. You got to get a business degree or, some technical skill. Do you see any parents being resistant about their career outcome being in an honors college, which I can't see that because that's the word honors, but you see that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it connected to honors, except if they felt like honors would in any way limit students' opportunities.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is still connected to majors.
Yeah,
But what we really try to focus on, and, I used to advise the undecided students in humanities and social sciences, and I would always say, there's no bad major here. What you need to do is find the one that you're going to be able to go deep in.
Yeah,
right? Where are you going to be able to really develop your research skills, develop your communication skills, and how about a second language? How about a critical language? Right?
Yeah.
I try to talk to the students as much as possible, except in a very few majors. Majors don't lead directly to anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Our tagline is majors do not equal careers.
Right.
Skills equal careers.
Yeah. So again, focus on the major where you're going to really go deep enough to develop those skills. And be sure that you're doing stuff beyond your classes,
yep.
Right? So what are you doing in the community? What are you doing with the RSOs? What are you doing with student government? What are you doing? Because it's not enough, we know. And also, I think it's an ideal learning situation to take, for instance, what we focus on, like in Honors 110 on asking questions. This is fundamental research. This is scholarship.
Yeah.
When you take that to a question brought to you by a nonprofit, a local nonprofit, and you take those skills there, you see that there's a direct connection between, what the values and the processes that we teach through scholarship and the world of work and, solving the grand challenges, as Dr. Washington would say. So we try to, give stuff that's very, fundamental, not easy. And again, I just, to lean back in on that inclusion piece, including the perspectives that are not your own,
yes.
that are not comfortable for you, but everything tells us, we're going to be able to build a better world only by thinking outside of our, own boundaries. And, when more than now did we need to do that?
I was about to say, that's my next question. What do you think is a unique challenge that you as Dean of the Honors College experience separate from your dean counterparts? Because every school has different, one might be need for more money. One might be they're just growing way too fast, not in a bad way, but scale, What are some unique challenges that you believe the Honors College may have?
I think our biggest, we have two challenges. One is we don't have enough scholarship money for our students.
Okay.
So, to get, our those EIP students, universities are competing for them.
Yes.
And we are not always winning, and we are not even mostly winning.
Yeah.
Right? So, we have, I've got to raise scholarship money
advancement,
to
development
really,
is very important.
Yeah, that is a very big challenge. And Mason has not, had the resources directed in this way. So I think, and I think everybody sees this.
We're the young institution. I mean, at large, Mason is the one. We could see that from the state level that we don't get the same amount of funds as other universities.
Right. And so our students don't get what they deserve.
Yes.
Right. So, for an honors college, that is, we're competing for students who have a lot of options. Mm-hmm. That's a disadvantage. Yeah. The other thing is that I don't have my own faculty. So we borrow faculty from across the university. I have a small core faculty staff, so we borrow from the different units. So that's where, the partnership is great, But it is a challenge, because we don't control our faculty resources the same way the other units do.
Like someone's not solely an honors college person. They're, I'm thinking like one of my mentors, Dr. Steen, I think he does both.
Yeah, he does.
I think Dr. Steen is teaching a honors class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I see that intersection of him having to wear two hats. And that could be, just in general, like not a negative on him, just to say like it's hard to devote yourself to two large major efforts concurrently.
Right. Right. And Mason is working on developing, the processes and the structures that would better support, somebody teaching across.
Both, yeah.
But, as you can imagine, there's all kinds of...
Life be lifing.
Yeah.
Do you have, I've always found peer support. Do you connect with other honor colleges deans to see what things they're going through throughout the country and stuff?
I do, actually. I have a regular conversation with a fellow dean out in Colorado, and through the Virginia Collegiate Honors Council, Dr. Woolsey, our assistant dean for faculty and curriculum, he spends a lot of time out there. He's the one who really brings back this is what's going on, out there. And we always send students to the National Honors Council, and that's great. And they're always, going out there and talking about what they're doing, and everybody else goes like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the great thing about seeing things outside your bubbles to see, okay, maybe my experiences aren't unique. What other people are not solving them, but addressing them different brings some good ideas back and stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, cross-unit collaboration at universities is generally pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So this is a part of the show called Shot for Shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first? I go first.
Maybe you better go first.
All right. So you said, I like to just learn a little person. Do you get a chance to read for fun and pleasure? And if you do, what are some things that you read for fun for yourself?
Yes, I do. And actually, a lot of my reading now is listening.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. There it is. Yeah.
Because I have a long commute, but I do also read. I think one of the books I enjoyed the most recently was the book Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Okay.
And for a book group that I just joined, we read Why Fish Don't Exist. It's a Lulu Miller's memoir.
So I'm just going to do a random side. So you're in a book group.
Yeah.
Do they feel like intimidated? Like, I'm in a book group with a dean. I got to be make sure I read the book and keep up with you.
They're my neighbors. They don't have any idea about that. Yeah.
That's right. It's like I'm in a book group with a dean of a college. I better read. She's going to quiz us.
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think they think about me that way.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. I love it. All right. What's your question for me?
Can I ask you a two-part question?
Love it. Yeah.
So what's the thing about Mason that you want never to change, and what's the thing about Mason that you want to change?
Well, besides the logo, don't. Hey, that's me. That's just me. I'm just joking. Shout out. No shade. I like the quill, but that was a joke. What I don't want to ever change about Mason is the grit that we have, the young institution, the chip on his shoulder, having to prove itself and not forgetting who we are. Like, I don't want us to become always chasing to be a more traditional college. Like, it's okay that we are young. It's okay that, I don't know, I kind of like that, little brother feeling, meaning it's motivating to always feel like we got a chip on our shoulder. And I think that kind of aligns with me as a person, not to say I have a list of people that, did me wrong and I'm going to get them back kind of thing. But I do remember things where I'm someone said I couldn't do something and then I do it. and then I'm like, I'll show you I did it. Like that kind of edge, that competitive edge. And I want us to have that. And I don't want us to grow so big that we forget that, because then sometimes it's like when you feel like you arrived, you stop having drive. And I think our drive to prove ourselves is a benefit to our students, because we want to be the most diverse institution. We want to be the most accessible. Like we have this drive to be different that I don't want it to get like watered down or look back 20 years and it's like we're just a part of the same cog of the educational machine and we're the same old university. I want us to be different and I like it. Like, I don't know if not having a football team makes us a not normal college and all that, but I like that. And I also really like the fact that we're just, I don't know, we're really in the community of Northern Virginia. I grew up around here. And sometimes it's like we're so embedded in the community, you forget that we're like a college. Like you just drive down Braddock Road, right? But we're here, we're surrounded, we're connected, we're extended. You can go anywhere and have some connection. Like, wow, like I go to an office building, right? At least one person in that office is an alum, right? Like we're everywhere. So that's something I don't want to lose. Like I want to keep that. But on the inverse, as you said too, I think that we are scaling up to the point where we do have to take on more, like not say traditional means, but like we need to like have more established traditional things. Like I know these other schools have, old money, like they got generations that went there and they got like, 4-generation UVA, alum and this really embedded pipeline of giving back and money. We just don't have that kind of money. So I don't know. It's like, how do you get money without losing yourself? That's kind of my biggest thing to say about our institute, because I think we're unique. I'm very proud to be a Mason alum. Like that's another thing too, that pride. Like I like it. Like I like having that kind of pride in your identity. It is a different not different identity, but it's a connector. So I don't know. That was like a branding commercial. The unofficial mayor of Mason though. So, I really do like the school. I really like it. That's without saying much. That I grew up here, I went here, I found my career here. Like it gave me a jump start to what I wanted to do and my passions. I have mentors. I think it's also that person-to-person affinity. I feel like the sense of belonging. I belong here. I don't feel like out of place or someone that I can talk to. They're better than me. Like we can collaborate. I feel that sense in almost every pocket of the university. So I hope we keep that.
Yeah.
That mindset.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, as faculty here, always, to hear that that's what a Mason alum carries is, makes me very happy.
Yeah.
And every alum I talk to who carries that, I just feel like, okay, we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, you see that pride. You see that, like I said, you see that little brother pride in like different spaces. Like go to an alumni event and you're like, I was brought into alumni events from proud alum, like the Black alumni, David Atkins and Janae Johnson. It's like they were so proud in their identity here that it brought more pride to me being an alum, and and then now working here concurrently, I think that has also increased my purpose and work. Is that I feel connected to this community, that I want students to be successful. Because I want them to have that jump start. And it's almost like that pipeline with the EIP students always giving back. These are things where people want to give back because they felt such connection to this community. And I think that's the core that we don't want to lose. When we get bigger, or we are going to get bigger, we're going to scale up. But I don't want people to get so big that we're just bringing people in so big that people that are here are not connected, or not feel a part of something.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right. And that thing you said about, somebody telling you couldn't do something and then being able to do able to do it. I mean, that I think is, for me, that's another really powerful experience of students with Mason is seeing what happens when you kind of get out of people's way, show confidence in them.
Yeah.
And again, this is why we need everyone in Mason's Honors College, right? Because we know that potential is out there. We know that opportunity is not, right? And we know that confidence is not, right?
Yeah.
So really, really stepping back and saying, like, the people in this room, I have no idea what they bring and what they can do, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it possible for them to reach their fullest potential.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to do, and it is amazing.
What they do when they do that.
It is amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think this is my last thing that I thought was really impactful. I recently went to, it was in the bottom of the Dewberry. It was like all these poster boards. It was, I think it was an Oscar.
It was an Oscars, yeah.
But I was like, how old are you? It was like their presentations and their studies that they all did. It was just phenomenal. And I think, like, in my mind, I'm just thinking, like, if we get out of people's way or eliminate the barriers in their way, you can imagine what they can do. I was like, you're 22 years old and you're already, like, wrote half a chapter of a book? Like, what is going, like, it was just phenomenal work, and it was cool to see them doing it. And they were carrying themselves like researchers and doing those, like, little pitches. And I was like, wow, this is amazing work. This is cool.
Well, it's like you're doing my plug for our winter exhibition.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I love it. Well, I guess it's a great way to tell in. So this is the part of the show. I call it shout outs and plugs. Shout out, you get to show love to anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs. These are the things that you want to share with the listeners. I'll make a strong point to put the links and the resources in the show notes for those to follow up. But shout outs and plugs.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, I want to shout out to the Honors College team, first and foremost. And, and just thinking about what goes on in the summer here, we're thinking about the advisors led by Vanessa Correa. They have just, gotten our students enrolled for the fall. I mean, that is no mean feat. The other part of the team, I had planned a shout out for Kasim Davis and Mia Hines over at EIP for Summer Academy, but I also want to call out the team members in the Honors College who are working right now to make the Summer Academy, the Honors Seminar work. That's Nadine McLoof and Holly Marvin. And leading up to that, the College Success Partnership course, that was Amy Weinstein and Rachel Cleaver from admissions. So those were my shout outs.
I love it.
And the plug, I really want to, you're talking about your transformative experience at a research exhibition. On the last Friday of every semester, midday, the Honors College has their exhibition. And in December 6th, it's the winter exhibition. And we, doors are usually open between about 11 and 1, and we invite everyone to come in and walk around and talk to the students. And that's where you're going to see, in particular in the winter, you're going to see those first semester freshmen standing by their posters talking about the question that they discovered, that they shaped, and the proposal that they have offered, for their final assignment there. And it is so energizing to see all those first semester students so excited about their own question.
So this the winter thing. These are the first year, like 17, 18-year-olds doing this. Wow, that's exciting.
And it's not just them. We also have our upper division students. We have our transfer students, and we have some students doing other kinds of research. But in the fall, we really, there's 20-something sections of Honors 110 and 25 students in each, and the class has to vote on who's going to represent the class.
Wow,
right.
That's exciting.
So the presenting of those ideas and having people like yourself and your people in your listening audience come in and talk to the students, that gives, that continues the learning experience for them, right? Because they've only just begun these projects. They've only, come to shape the question to be something that they can pursue. So,
Excellent. Well, I'll be there. Dr. Steen, I think randomly, I think there was like 3 students that emailed me this semester asking me how to help with their projects. So I definitely got to.
That's
jump
for
on
our
board.
Honoring Our Community program.
I was like, who are these? This dude keeps on referring people to me like I know what I'm talking about. It's like podcasting and stuff. But definitely. So all this will be on the Honors College website, as well as some of the things will be announced.
Yeah.
All the links and all that will be on.
Yeah.
Like honors.gme.edu.
Yeah.
I believe it's
That's
on.
right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us. Positive Filter listeners, please support the Honors College and all the things. Everything that this college is doing will be in the show notes. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund to support the work that he did fighting food insecurity in the United States. Additionally, please, if you're a Mason Nation person, please consider submitting a Pats for Patriots to show love to someone else in the Mason community. That's something I want to do to spread kindness. It's been a great episode. Give this episode a like, a subscribe, a review on Apple or Spotify. Helps elevate the visibility of this podcast, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.